Welcome to the Business Transformation Pitch. I am Greg, the CX goalkeeper, bringing you conversations where transformation, leadership, and customer experience meet to create real impact. Did you know 80% of regular listeners haven't subscribed yet? If you enjoy the show, support us by hitting the subscribe button. I promise we will keep raising the bar with the guests, ideas, and strategies that really matter to you. Because in business, just like in football, this conversation could be the game changer. I am Greg's AI-based assistant. Greg had an enlightening conversation with Sebastian Graf about the future of AI-native companies. They discussed about the concept of companies without traditional human hierarchies and discussed the 4 pillars necessary for creating safe and effective AI-driven businesses. Sebastian shared fascinating insights on the potential impacts of these companies on society and the importance of trust and regulation in this evolving landscape. Enjoy this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Business Transformation Pitch with the CX goalkeeper. I am super thrilled to have this discussion with Sebastian Graf because I met him at the Future Summit. We were discussing about AI transformation, AI native companies, and it was enlightening to see the keynote of Sebastian. He knows a lot. He worked in a lot of companies, and his experience is incredible. I am super thrilled to have you. Sebastian, thank you very much for accepting my invitation.
Thank you so much for having me.
And as usual on this podcast, let's kick off the discussion with the presentation of today's top player, is Sebastian Graf. Sebastian, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi. So I'm a Bay Area native, but I've been living in Germany for about 15 years now. Most of my career has been working on very tough, large existential crises and trying to build technology solutions to solve them. I have a background in robotics, so part of my old office back in Berlin as my background here. And I have built everything from 3D metal printers to climate capturing assets, so things that take CO2 out of the air. And more recently in 2019 and 2018, reading the paper on transformer architectures and getting very deep into the area of large language models and text-to-video engines. So I was within my communities one of the first people to do real-time text-to-video and using that to show off things at parties and that. But this was like 3 years ago, and now it's starting to become more mainstream. So I'd say that I tend to have a pretty keen eye on exactly where that technology in the future is going, and I get to play with all the latest tools before they come out.
Let's phrase it like that. You are every time ahead of the hype, so you know what it's coming next, and you can prepare yourself and you can prepare us on what's coming up in 3 years. But that will not be the first question that I'm going to ask. But what's your mission today?
Yeah, so one of the things I'm very passionate about is talking how the future is going to change with AI native companies. And what an AI native company really truly is it's one that doesn't have a classic human hierarchy in it. It's something closer to a code base that gets certified by a government body, similarly to how a company is certified by its particular address in the physical space. And then that company needs to have a large number of protections and regulations and things that help it to stay within the lane in that jurisdiction and governments. So this is something we currently say, we go to a website, we expect to get a particular good or service or thing from that. I think there's going to be a lot more depth and nuance here in the areas that businesses will be effectively non-human run. And I put this about 5 years out. So this is me talking about the things I'm building in my home lab, in my business and work arrangements, and also the safety mechanisms that I consider to be the bare minimum required to be viable out there. So also a bit of a PSA, public service announcement about this, because I think you can already build autonomous companies. They're just not safe. They're entirely, like, you can go out and use APIs today to register companies remotely offshore, and you can put all these same autonomous elements in there. It's just no one will have actual control over those systems.
I think, Sebastian, thank you very much, because you already linked your introduction to the main topic as AI native company. Let's discuss about it. And for us also, let's understand what are an AI native company. You shared the short explanation. Let's kick off this game and start. What is a truly AI native company? Could you please elaborate a bit more than only non-hierarchy, having not a hierarchy or human hierarchy within it?
Yeah, so I don't see the standard ways we do things as like when you have a entrepreneur who would like to start a business and that they have a set of services that they need to fulfill for that business to work. So a person who gathers food from fields needs a set of organizational structures to have people go into those fields, gather those foods, bring them to market, certify that they're organic or fresh or whatever it is. So all of these different services at the moment are done by people. And every part of that stack actually requires a person sign off on it or create some particular labor. Most of those human labor elements have been automated in many places. So you don't need somebody to pick apples every single time. I mean, some places it's much cheaper to have human labor do that because it's very low wages. But in most places, it's going to make sense to start using machines and robotics and things for this. What's happened is in the intellectual space with LLMs and non-human intelligence, we're starting to see a lot of those in-between stages where creating a particular service or a particular thing for validating this company's offering. So like an organic standard can be automated today. There's no reason to have a human in the loop going and checking all the boxes. And so a lot of these particular things are starting to get into the point where it's sort of like a Lego brick system where you put down this Lego brick, you can start creating a company that takes some particular good or service and brings it all the way to a customer in an autonomous way. And I think that this is the thing we're not yet prepared for. As a species, we don't know how to price those businesses or even distribute a lot of jobs are going to be lost. A lot of people are going to have a hard time making a living in this system. There will be a lot of abundance because there will be quite a lot of new productivity that's gained as a result of this. But at the same time, those companies can also do very bad things. So we saw in the communist revolution throughout Russia and even China, large starvation as a result of the wrong signaling and reporting going up the chain of hierarchy to the top. And they didn't realize that they weren't producing the amount of food they needed for their populations. So this kind of stuff has real large impact and effects on giant groups of people. And unfortunately, the economic incentive is there to do this more and more autonomously with less and less human intervention. So in my mind, that is a pretty clear indicator that we're going to do it. And there needs to be some levers that humans can pull to make sure that we don't end up in a mass starvation situation or in a medical crisis or in any of these different things as we start implementing more and more automation. And I have 4 key pillars to this, so I'd be happy to go into those when.
Yes, I think let's really jump into these 4 pillars, because what you are saying, it's super interesting. These companies will come, that's my understanding. Secondly, we don't know as a species, not as a shareholder, not as an employee, but now as human beings, we don't know how to manage them, how to handle them, and to really understand the constraints, but also the opportunities that we are having. And therefore, I think pillars are always good to create a bit of structure in the discussion. Let's kick off.
Okay. So I'm coming from the engineering perspective. Having built autonomous systems before for products and basic services, I would definitely state that one of the top areas is you need to have some way to freeze what code and systems are running in your organization. And so by freezing this, you might consider it an AI birth certificate, some version of this company is registered with this code base, which does not change. At this point, this is considered to be a freeze. And so when you run this company as a service or as a entity, it will have some level of predictable events. You put in these particular inputs and you always get these outputs. So this is called testing. So when you have a frozen code base and you can test it over and over and over again in various different scenarios, this is the area of DevOps. So developer operations, where you take unproven code from your development team and you figure out how to break it. And you then create tests so that in the future, when somebody writes new code, you figure out if that one's going to break in the same ways as the old ones. So this space, already covering two pillars here, you need the AI birth certificate of some sort, and you need what's called CICD for compliance. CICD is continuous integration, continuous development. And that is the term used by developers around the world for making sure that their web apps stay up when updates happen, or knowing how to fix various bugs that show up over and over again in AI written code. This is going to be the cornerstone of a lot of the AI native entities and companies that are out there today, or out there in the next few years. So CI/CD for compliance might look like the regulatory body for your finance, governmental finance department, having an API that any one of these native companies is automatically tested against. So the current regulatory, compliance rules are now actually codified in such a way that your company can be tested against them on a minute-to-minute basis or on a snap audit basis. Whatever it will be, it needs to be fast and it needs to be able to keep up with it. If your audits take years, most of the harm that these companies can actually end up doing will happen in those years. So I think there's a big GovTech play in this particular space as well that's going to happen. Let's see. So we've covered like the provenance and the AI birth certificate, the CI/CD pipeline. This one takes a little bit of explanation first, but there's this term in LLM engineering and model development called RLHF, so reinforcement learning with human feedback. And this is what everybody knows as ChatGPT. Essentially, the model behind ChatGPT, all the GPT models start out without any human personality, without any human signaling at all. So essentially, they are completion models. You give it a page of a particular book, and it tries its best to recreate the second page verbatim without getting it wrong. And that's how the weights are literally trained. The weights are trained by going page by page through large corpuses of text and predicting the next page and checking, does this page actually match what the next page is? If it doesn't, then it back propagates that information into the model weights and tries again to try and get closer and closer to the exact match of that page. Now, what RLHF actually is doing is it's taking our human feedback from conversations with these systems to then try and produce the most human native responses, which is confusing because actually humans are very confusing, especially in the data, which makes those particular models worse at certain other tasks like math, coding, and sciences, because they get to be less factual. Humans, as a general rule, are not factual beings. So when we end up building out these particular pipelines, most people's experience of LLM technology is through a chat interface and through this thing. That's not even the most intelligent models that are out there. That is like just, you're getting the little human cake of this. There's going to be another type of model that's going to be developed in a model training process, which is going to be RLRF, which is reinforcement learning with regulatory feedback. And so this process is going to take large corpuses of text that have to do with the regulations on how these systems should operate. And they're going to go through fine-tuning processes on those models to try and produce the right level of regulatory compliance to be operating within that market. And so this is going to be different. Every jurisdiction is going to have their own RLRF, training corpus. Much of the world will probably end up sharing some version of this, because once you have a system that does that, it doesn't make sense to, not have that. So it would be great if that was governmental. But in general, the way that this data comes through is if you've ever started a company in the finance area and you needed an opinion letter from your finance audit or whatever jurisdiction, that opinion letter might take a few weeks, but it's a legally binding letter at that point that this is the way you should interpret their regulations. And so having an API from a government that has that particular binding interpretation mechanism for RLRF training, that's going to be the third pillar of how you build AI native companies and the types of models that will run those companies and govern those companies. Let's see. The last pillar to build any AI native structure on, and the thing that kind of ties this all together, is the idea of harm reduction rather than harm like can't happen at all. And harm reduction is really the process that we need insurances for the products and companies that will do harm as a result of these other pillars failing at some point. There has to be some mechanism for recuperating losses that are made from this, because the gains from doing these particular companies in an AI native way will be so huge. They also need to have some way of paying back those losses. And so I believe there's going to be some version of staking, staking, which is a Web3 concept where a group of investors put money on a particular contract to validate that it is a good contract that people should trust. If that contract fails or is coerced or changed in some particular way because of the technology or because of fraud or some other thing, the investors lose their money, and it goes towards paying the people who were harmed by that contract's fraudulent nature, whatever the term I'm going to use for that. So this is going to be the same way within these autonomous organizations. There's going to be a mechanism which allows for people who have been harmed to go and seek remuneration for that. And I believe that this is similar to owning car insurance or similar to owning other forms of things where you have a very high chance of harm within society. There has to be some mechanism there. And that's the 4 pillars that I believe is going to be the minimum safety spec for these kinds of companies. Again, today, we do not actually have the need to use these pillars. You can go and start an AI native company right now. And I'll give you one example of one from Anthropic in their office where they've been testing this. But this is like, I want this out there so that we can have these conversations and we can start these companies with this minimum spec. Otherwise, literally the companies will be running themselves and doing harm, and no one will have any ability to stop them.
Let's go first with the Anthropic example that you can share, and then I have a few questions to follow up.
Okay, absolutely. So I believe it was a year and a half ago, Anthropic had one of their engineers had an idea. He wanted to run a vending machine in the office called Claudius. And Claudius would go and purchase items off of Amazon to put into the vending machine, like snacks and drinks and various other things. This system would look at what people were buying in order to decide on what inventory to keep and what to reduce in price basically running it as a company. So how can Claudius make money in the Anthropic office with all of the employees there? What do they want to eat, drink, have as novelty items? And it turns out that they gave it a chat interface for people who were interested in specific items to be able to ask it, hey, do you have this particular thing? And one of the engineers had asked it for a tungsten cube as a kind of prank. And it very much took that as a market signal that people want tungsten cubes. Like, we're going to do this. Ironically, a lot of them actually did want tungsten cubes because it's a very novelty, fun item to have as a desk toy. But the thing was, it just ended up buying a large number of them. And they're actually quite expensive. So like, hundreds of dollars per cube, little tiny things. And so when it filled its refrigerator with tungsten cubes, it eventually got to the point that it didn't have other stock for other things. And nobody was buying more of them. So it started reducing the price to try and get them out of inventory. And it ran out of money because it was selling them for too cheap. So these are like classic examples of early business decisions that any one of us would have or could have made, where we chose the wrong inventory, tried to figure out how to get rid of it so that we could get inventory people actually wanted and all of that, and then failed as a business. And that's a very classic example of AI being put in this position to do this. And I think that this is literally the worst it's ever going to be, right? So from this point on, we can just see how, managing finances, managing inventory, managing all these particular aspects of the business are going to change. And Anthropic still has that vending machine there. I got to use it back a couple months ago, and it's a seriously fun experiment to see where this whole AI native incorporations and structures and things are going to go. And,
thank you very much.
Yeah.
This is a really great example. You shared 4 pillars. It's freezing. It's the birthday certificate of AI native companies, the CICD for corporation, then the reinforced learning, regulatory feedback, and reducing harm. And now you share the Anthropic example. You mentioned at the beginning that you are an engineer, but from my point of view, this looks like more on a board level. What are the boundaries that need to be defined? Now let's speak about the engineering side. How can be the engineering within the company? How should be the resilience of engineering to create such a company, to keep that? Because, as you said, a lot of new ideas pop up. We can do this, we can do that, let's do this, let's do that. If you have a human in the loop, then it starts creating exceptions. Let's do an exceptions here and exceptions there. What's your view on that?
It's tough because I think that we're in this interesting phase where if your product, your service, or whatever is getting more competitive and better for your customers with better intelligence, then you're generally going to be doing okay, right? So this means also internally, if you have a department that gets better with machine intelligence, being smarter and more capable, then that department is going to be okay. There's going to be some amount of growth in that space because we're on the hyper accelerating path at the moment. More and more code is being written. More and more feedback systems are also having to be written, because if you have 1,000 lines of code an hour from a mid-tier engineer, how are you going to implement those into your products and services on a reliable basis? Like, it's just too much for review. And so much of the systems that are getting built right now within the software space, within the space of using intelligence better, using models to their max throughout the day. Like, as an engineer, I look at it as a badge of honor when you've maxed out your Claude Code Max subscription or your Gemini subscription or whatever on a daily basis. That's literally getting the most out of the particular system you're trying to do. And if you have the feedback mechanisms to then turn those into actual products, meaning that you have the testing and the CI/CD down, you have the code freezes down, you have these other points that I was bringing up for the AI native company, that's the new version of productivity. That's what's what every organization has to be looking inwards at. What are these testing and feedback loop mechanisms we're implementing? Which departments are we really, truly going to have to let go of because they will not be competitive to keep in the near future? From the engineering standpoint, I'm curious where we're going to go in terms of physical engineering, CAD and simulations and the engineering pieces. I love those fields. I'm a huge proponent of doing hardware. I unfortunately don't see many business opportunities in hardware anymore, because most of the companies that produce hardware end up having to produce a subscription to subsidize the cost of that particular hardware in a particular place. And those are not long-term viable businesses, because we have faster turnaround times. We have more companies getting sold and then dropping their subscription holders, and then suddenly the car or robot or thing is bricked and there's no way you can get it back. So I'm of the opinion that the finance industry right now is in a really bad place, where the only things that work are these kinds of intelligence-driven booms. I don't know if any of that answers your question, but I think that that's the direction I'm going with companies internally. Like, for engineering, it's all about testing, and it's all about doing super fast iteration cycles.
I think you are going in the right direction, and you already prepared for the next question. The foundation of every business is trust. You need to trust the company that you buy stuff. If it's a machine, the machine needs to trust the other machine to buy. And perhaps to conclude this discussion, what's your suggestions how to build up trust throughout the entire process of AI native company, so that customer will buy, regulation will be accepted, and what's your view on that?
It being the American who says this, but I think everybody has a price. So if the price is low enough, you're willing to try it. You might not be willing to try it on a heart surgery done by an autonomous, AI yet, but you're probably willing to try it on much lower risk things first, and there will be a risk tolerance that builds up over time. Oh, if it can stock my fridge, then maybe it can drive my car. Oh, if it can drive my car, maybe it can help me with medical things. Oh, if it can help me with medical things, maybe it can also help me build businesses. I don't know, something along those lines of trajectory where you just feel safer and safer with it. It's not to say that these are going to be 100% safe systems, just the same way that humans are not 100% safe people. So I think that there's a nuance to this. But in general, if you can be 100 times cheaper than the next biggest player in the space, you're able to drop prices to the point where people are willing to try it. And when they try it and they have continual sustained some form of success with that product, you'll have converted them, and that's it. It's a slow process. I will give another example of a situation that's happening right now. It turns out that self-driving cars are already here in a very big way. I mean, yes, you can trip them up. You can make them do silly stuff in the streets of San Francisco. You can do all sorts of stuff. But the truth is, the technology is already better than humans at driving. Like, just, it's safer. It's already there. Now, the thing is, we don't have the framework for how to deal with the eventual accidents that will happen. Even if it's better than the best human, there's still going to be an accident, right? And so in those situations, who do you take to court? Who's the scapegoat that you remove from society as a result of an accident happening with an autonomous vehicle, for instance? And that doesn't really exist. If you have 1 million of these vehicles on the roads and one accident happens, it's very unlikely as a society you're going to agree to pull all 1 million vehicles because of that one accident. And this is a really unsatisfying answer for us as a governance and a group and a society, because we feel like progress comes from these like removing harm by taking bad actors or and that's just not the way the world is going to work. It's going to be working on like step-by-step, small incremental statistical gains. And I think that's going to cause some serious social and emotional instability around a lot of these topics and the safety that's there. So it's not 100% that that we're not going to go through hiccups along this ride, but we will see that people who have invested early into these particular things will get to be very, very wealthy on it because of the fact that you just have such a reduction in cost for doing it without people. And that's sad. No, not necessarily sad, but like that exacerbates a large part of the wealth inequality and other problems that we are going to have to tackle with some form of new governance and finance structure on Earth. And yeah, I don't have a good solution to that now, other than to say, try and raise all, like the tide will rise all boats and get everybody using the tools as quickly as possible and critically using them, rather than it being something of like, oh, this helps me do my math homework. I don't think that those are useful applications for this this particular technology.
We can close the loop, and going back to your 4 pillars that you mentioned. Harm reduction, you cannot get it away, but you should find ways to reduce that. And yes, we need to learn and to grow with these new solutions in place. I would have thousands of additional questions for you, but taking care of your time and the audience time, I think for today, the game is coming to an end. I would like to have you back to continue the discussion and also to discuss about your incredible projects that you are doing around climate change, global medical crisis, and so on. Therefore, I would be really proud to have you back. But for today, it's everything. I have a few questions for you at the end of the game. As usual, we have some penalties. Quick fire round, please, very short answer. What's your role model in business?
Oh, that's a really good question. Role model in business. I don't know that I actually have any. I'm very much not on the standard capital business side, so I would have to think pretty hard about this. So I'm actually going to skip this question. I don't know. I don't know who is the right person.
I will ask you the next time. Be ready for that.
Please do. Please do.
What's your transformation superpower?
Transformation superpower. I would say being able to play and use the next generation technologies very easily. I live and breathe this stuff, and I think that we as a society can grow to live and breathe with technology that we have. So play. That's my
What's your favorite workplace vibe?
A hackathon. I love it when you have a group of people building cool products and software and things together in a fast-paced manner, when you can stand on each other's shoulders to get to goals that you never thought you could do on your own. It's, that's the vibe. Best vibe in the world.
And what's the toughest challenge you overcome in business?
Toughest challenge in business. I think in my case, I found some methods for getting the price of carbon to 1,000 euros a ton. The problem was it was in the finance area in such a way that it would have required offshore businesses and a whole bunch of other complicated structures. But I'm very proud of the engineering we put into getting 1,000 euros a ton price on carbon. And I'll leave it at that. That's this is one of those engineering challenges that I would say if we could scale that globally, we would be able to tackle climate change on a very real way with carbon dioxide removal at 1,000 euros a ton.
And what's your winning habit?
My winning habit? Every day I am curious. I think deeply about how I would build something. So if I ever wonder about something like how does GPS work and satellites, I engineer it in my head before I go and look it up. And so this is my winning habit. If you can ask yourself and spend 15 minutes before you go to Google and look things up, how you would build that thing, you'll always be able to derive the future of a particular technical.
That's great. And now we are coming to Sebastian Golden Nugget. It's something that we discussed or something new to leave to the audience with.
The Golden Nugget. I think everyone should be building testing for their AIs and for their use cases. You should be critical of your chat interfaces when you're using ChatGPT or using any of this. Have methods for testing. If there's a golden nugget out of any of this, I think that should be the takeaway.
The only thing that I can say is, Sebastian, thank you very much. Please stay with me to the audience for today. It's everything. I hope that you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did, and talk to you the next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Bye.
That's all for today. If you enjoyed this episode, please spread the word. It really helps. And remember, 80% of regular listeners haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoyed the show, the easiest way to support us is by hitting that subscribe button. I promise we will keep raising the bar with the guests, ideas, and strategies that matter most to you. Until next time, never forget, we are not in B2B or B2C, we are in H2H, human-to-human environment. Thank you.